and this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things.
Okay,
and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne, and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
I will go ahead and start revolutionradio.com, and then when that's finished,
the opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Barbara Jean Lindsey, internationally acclaimed psychic,
by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of
as a cosmic oracle. She is a conduit to the powers that be to answer your questions about your future self, past lives, current career, love. She shines light into the darkness and illuminates what was, what may be, and beyond. The readings and advice given by Barbara Jean Lindsey are for entertainment purposes only, do not take the place of any medical, legal, or financial advice given to you by a qualified professional, and are not a substitute for medical, legal, or financial advice. If you need a doctor, call a doctor. If you need to be expanded, call the Cosmic Oracle.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Cosmic Oracle Show. This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsey. I'm really happy to be here. I have a lot of people in chat today, so that's pretty cool. So those that can see, this is a shirt that one of my listeners sent to me, and so I'm wearing it. Wait, this side. It's really cool. It says, it's got like an ET with hello with a peace sign. So that's to my friend Roby. Thank you. Love it. And I forget I'm wearing it, and I go out in the world, and I'm buying groceries or doing something, and I get these looks from me, and I forget the shirt that I'm wearing. But it did start up a conversation too, where I had a guy say, "We come in peace" to me, and I thought that was really cute. So to me, so it's Friday, is July 19th, and we're coming to you live from my new studio in Sierra Madre, California. That's right, I just moved to LA again. I'm 1 mile from my son, And I have so many friends here, and I just love it here. So for many, many years, I went back from Northern California to Southern California, back and forth, because I had children in both places and friends and business friends and all those sorts of things. So now I'm back in the LA area. I like it a lot, and I'm really happy to be here. So we'll be doing our live broadcast here every Friday from Sierra Madre, California. And it's a beautiful mountain, just a stunning mountain. Every morning I get to look out at it. And so I'm going to go explore it. I haven't had a chance to really do that yet, but next week it's on schedule to go explore Sierra Madre Canyon and see if I maybe have a Sasquatch or two to find, because I will be talking at that Sasquatch, the Psychic Sasquatch Conference in Chewelah, Washington in August, the end of August. So thanks for tuning in to the Revolution Radio. And we are a totally volunteer station, and we're here only by your support and your donations. So far this month, we have $970 donated, and we need $2,760. So you can just go to your freedomslips.com. That's freedomslips.com. Hit that donate button that you see there and give whatever you can. $5, $10, whatever you can, and it helps keep the lights on and helps keep everything going here on the station. And know that 100% of your donation goes directly to the station. And that gives us the freedom to talk about whatever we want and have whomever we want on. And so today we have with us, let me make sure she's still here. Yes, there she is. I can see her. And I just want to give you a brief bio of her. I mean, if I was going to do a bio of Kelly's work, okay, it would probably take me all day in a way from all her amazing work that she's done. So she's one of those ladies that's a powerhouse where she's multifaceted, doing all these different things at once, keeping her hand in all these different things and being guided by her intuition. And I love that, having a life built from intuition. So I'll tell you a little bit about her background. She just wrote a new book. We hope she's going to talk about that. She's free to talk about whatever her heart's desire is this evening. But Penny Kelly is an author, a teacher, a speaker, a publisher, a personal and spiritual consultant, and a naturopathic physician. In 1979, while she was working as a tool and process engineer for the Chrysler Corporation, she experienced a full spontaneous awakening of kundalini that completely changed her life. For some years, she has been involved in scientific research and investigations into consciousness at Pylandia Laboratory near Ann Arbor, Michigan, and has been the subject of some research as well. She holds a degree in humanistic studies from Wayne State University and a degree in naturopathic medicine from Clayton College of Natural Health. Penny is a mother of 4 children and has written 7 books. Okay, 7 books. And I think one more. She just finished. They're all available on Amazon.com, and all you have to do is go to Penny Kelly Books, and it'll take you right there. I left a link on Facebook for you, so you can go directly to her work. You can also reach her at consciousnessonfire.com. That's consciousnessonfire.com. And her books are The Evolving Human, A True Story of Awakening Kundalini, The Elves of Lily Hill Farm, A Partnership with Nature, Robes, A Book of Coming Changes, Getting Well Again Naturally from the Soil to the Stomach, Consciousness and Energy Volume 1, Multidimensionality and a Theory of Consciousness, Consciousness and Energy Volume 2, New Worlds of Energy, and Consciousness and Energy Volume 3, History and Consciousness. And then her latest is Consciousness and Energy Volume 4. So without further ado, let me make sure I'm all on here. Welcome to the show, Penny.
Welcome. It is good to be here. A little bit stressful getting here on time, but it's okay. Gosh.
We're really happy to have you. How I found you is I was looking up consciousness and I just needed to know more about it so that it made sense to me for my own personal, and I'm more right-brained than left-brained. So I needed to sink my teeth into it, but it would start unwinding in a way that I couldn't relate to it. So I kept listening to it. I still couldn't relate. And then when I heard you and your breakdown of it, I had a bingo and an aha went off. And so that's what I really want to share that with our listeners, because if I'm like that, I'm thinking there's a lot more people like that out there where we cannot make consciousness something outside ourselves or something so complicated, but something that we can really sink our teeth into and understand it. And so I'm hoping you're the one that would give us this really definite foundation of how and where to explore that.
Wow. Well, let me ask you something. What was it that gelled? What clicked when I was talking about consciousness? Was it something specific, or has it all melted in now like sugar in a cup of tea?
It kind of melted like sugar in a cup of tea with a little cream.
Okay. All right.
It's the way that you said it. You just broke it down where it was just, you took it from the beginning and just expanded from that point.
Okay. Well, let me do that again.
Okay.
I might not do it exactly like you heard it because it's a little different each time. But
yeah.
But let me say it this way. So when you're talking about source, what most people, I don't know what they're thinking, something. But source is really space. And we have all sorts of competing arguments about the nature of reality and where stuff comes from and God and all that stuff. But I have these 4 pieces that I have been testing now for probably, I'm going to say 30 years, over 30 years. And I'm just going to nutshell it. We start with mind, space. Mind is the awareness property of space, and space is the location aspect of mind. And space is very silent. It's very still. And when it starts to move, both aspects shift. Space becomes energy and mind becomes consciousness. And consciousness is the feeling aspect of energy, and energy is the motion of consciousness. And, so we have all these frequencies in motion, they're moving, etc. They produce particles. Mm-hmm. Particles are the first matter, and that matter has, there's a transformation there as well. So the consciousness becomes intelligence, and the frequency becomes a particle. And so the intelligence is the cooperative aspect and the communication aspect of the particle. And the particle is the center of intelligence, is the pumping station of intelligence. And that's what it pumps out, and it's very cooperative. And it's looking for whatever it can to cooperate with. And so it finds other particles. Those particles are very intelligent. They begin to group together. They are self-organizing. Mm. And this is something that you find in science, or that we found in the lab over and over and over. If you disturb, well, let me finish. So the particles form a pattern because they are self-organizing. And the pattern has embedded within it, the intelligence becomes intent. Mm. So, at that point, you've got this pattern and you've got this intent. And from that pattern, you can make all kinds of things. It depends on what the pattern is. If it's a humanoid pattern, you're going to get humans or something that looks humanoid. If it's an animal, you're going to get an animal. If it's a plant, and you just rearrange the frequencies to get a different form. Because the frequencies are what are producing the particles. Okay? Yeah. So consciousness is where we first move from oneness into duality, or into, something that's not oneness anymore. So when you're in that state of oneness, that state of mind space, there's no thinking. There's nothing to feel except bliss. And you, the individual, do not exist in the way that, we think, oh, here I am, this is my name, this is my job, these are my relations, this is, these are my interests, etc. All that is gone. It's just gone. And so mind space is this place of total peace. Mm-hmm. It's where the eternal self is rooted. And that really, that awareness of I am is really the thing that, that kind of stabilizes and makes each one of us, including plants, animals, buildings, machinery, and people, able to say, I exist, and this is what I do. Mm-hmm. So everything has intent embedded in it.
I love that. See, the way that you say it, it breaks it down and it makes it understandable. I had a near-death experience and so I was in a coma for 2.5 days, right? And I was at the place that you talk about, at that beginning place where you get totally expanded and you are one with everything, the most pieced out love, bliss, expanded state of beingness where for me, I looked down, I didn't have a body. So, and yet I still existed, right? So it blows your mind and it forces you like, bam, to expand your consciousness out into more of a cosmic view. And then to work that once you get back to where you were before, you never really get back. And then you really don't want to get back. So, but then you want to find all your friends that you relate to that are also working on consciousness. And so I have the book, I have it right here too, Beyond UFOs, the Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligences. And that's from the Free organization. And I thought your work and their work would go like hand in hand as well. But it's hard to put it in words, and you're the closest I've ever found to put it in words like that makes sense. And I'm sure our listeners are understanding this. I'm going to check and see if we have any questions from them before we kind of move on from here. Okay, so Emily says, the conservation of energy can be neither created nor destroyed. It merely changes form. What would you say to that, Penny?
Not true.
Not true. Okay. So what would you say instead?
Well, let me say it this way. That is only true in this reality zone. That's our perception. That's as much as we can test. That's as much as we know, but that's not true. There are just a host, thousands upon thousands of dimensions with other forms of light that move at different speeds, other kinds of energy that transform and change and do all kinds of things. And energy can stop being energy as soon as it returns to its original condition called space.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, so that's good. Oh, and we have another one. I'd love to ask a question if possible. Sure, Louise, go ahead and ask your question. So I hope you don't mind taking questions. This is awesome.
No, I love questions.
I'm just so happy to have you on. It's all of your work too, and I know I want to talk about your new book that you just finished, and if you'd like to talk about that, or we can still work with consciousness. So part of your work now is working with people with developing their own consciousness and their relationship with consciousness, not only with themselves, but with their family, their community, their world, their cosmic consciousness, right? So, Louise, there's no specific topic that we need to ask. Just go ahead and ask whatever question you would like. Okay. So, So where would you take it from here, Penny?
I think what I would say at this point is I want to go back to just making a note that most people, most writers, a lot of scientists, a lot of, the people who have the say in our reality system have this attitude that the consciousness comes out of the brain. And that's starting to change. I've started hearing different people say, no, we think the brain comes from consciousness. And that's exactly true. It is the, energy, every frequency carries information and self-awareness. And right there you have the basis of consciousness. When you're in that basic state, source state, the only thought you are capable of having is I am. Mm-hmm. The only feeling that you're capable of having is absolutely overwhelming bliss, paralyzing bliss. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as you move away from that, when you and it's not you, the you think you are, it's just this generalized I am, and you're part of this I am awareness. And that awareness is what underpins every single thing that is aware of itself and conscious of itself. And so when you move from this space where you're saying I am to energy, where now things are in motion, what you say is I am and something is happening to me. Mm-hmm. And so what's happening is feeling, because consciousness is the feeling aspect of energy.
Okay, and so that's where you would talk about the clairaudience, clairsentience, I forget all of them. There's a whole bunch of
clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairnascence is your smell, clairgustance is your sense of taste. Mm-hmm. And in this realm, it's pretty heavy. We are pretty dense. So actually, does Louise have her question ready?
Let's see. No, she just said she's been on an awakening spiritual journey for the past 2 years, and it's been challenging to say the least.
Oh, really?
We never said it would be easy, but it's worth it.
Gosh.
Just because you have an experience doesn't mean you're get to sit up on the mountain and talk your wisdom from there. If anything, I think you have a tougher path because you have to go in and I remember reading something about your work where it's experiential. And I love that part of it, that in order to reach a consciousness level, it's all experiential. And we should be learning that way anyway. And you talk about that.
That's right. That's right. I think it's really, really, really important to say to people, when you're talking about, quote, higher consciousness, it's not really higher. It's just more expanded. And it takes in more frequencies. It's still your consciousness. And I think a lot of people are sitting around waiting for this voodoo thing to come over them and take over. And they're going to feel like, oh, I'm in heaven or I've been changed or whatever. No, it's your consciousness. And the more things you can do with it, the better off you are. And the more spiritual you become. Mm-hmm. That's really important. The true spirituality for me is going to be different than it is for anyone else, because true spirituality is the development of that wacky, wonderful, individual, unique spirit of the self. So if you're generous, that's one kind of spirituality. If you're greedy, that's another kind of spirituality. If you're artistic, that's another. If you want to make shoes, that's another. If you want to be a farmer, your spirituality comes when you develop the passion that you have. That's the true spirit of yourself.
Mm-hmm. And so it's expressed. So not only are you aware of it or the perception, but the next part of it, after you get this first foundation part, is to express it.
That's right. That's so true. That's so important. It's, you can't have spirituality if you don't also have action. Mm-hmm. There's an active principle that has to be honored and followed. And if you don't do that, then what good is the spirit?
Mm-hmm. So it's not a spectator sport.
No, no.
I'm not going to just sit back and just, sit here and watch my YouTube channel for days and days and get all this information in the head, right?
Right.
And I can download and I can talk the talk, but can I walk the walk?
Right. A lot of people read a book or they listen to an interview and then they still have to wash their socks.
It's true.
They still have to do the dishes. You still have to feed the chickens. You still have to go to work every day. You still have to put up with the other drivers on the road. Mm-hmm. And the craziness that our world is going through right now is really pretty. It's quite the test. I guess we'll leave it at that for the moment. But that whole, the development of consciousness is the development of what I'm going to call the true self that's hidden under a whole bunch of layers of programming. We get programmed from the minute we're born. And you have to unprogram and be willing to feel the truth of what is. And that's what true spirituality springs from.
Mm-hmm. And so there's a rawness to it. There's
in fact, let me say something about that process. Because Louise, was it Mary Louise? Something Louise is going through that.
Louise, Coyne. I'm not sure how she's Coyne.
Okay.
Louise C.
So, the first thing that happens in an awakening process is somebody says something that upsets you or intrigues you. And you get upset because it doesn't match what you have grown to believe, or it intrigues you because it's so wildly different. You're thinking, well, that's nuts, and you just poo-poo it. And then you hear it again, and then you hear it again, or somebody says the irritating thing again, and now you're ending up face to face with something that you don't want to think, don't want to know, don't want to feel, and are scared to death of. And so there's this, this whole series of things that you go through. If you have, like me, a full kundalini experience, there's no arguing with yourself. You have this explosive experience in which you do not burn up, because sometimes the individual burns up. And the consciousness is changed instantly, overnight. And now you're reading people's minds and you're seeing what's coming and you're seeing into other realms and you're hearing voices and having visions, and it's just, the experience is one of, oh my God, I'm going nuts. I'm going insane. And so, the other alternative is, it happens a little more slowly, and you begin to play with a thought that used to upset you, or that you thought was absolutely impossible and crazy. And the more you play with it, the more you begin to kind of ask yourself, well, how could that be? Or as soon as you ask a question, Spirit answers. And it answers in a way that's usually hands-on. It doesn't say, Barbara, here's the answer to your question. Instead, what it does is introduce another experience that you have invited by asking the question. Mm-hmm. So, so this back and forth proceeds. It's like a tug of war. You pull in this direction. I can't think that. For me, some of it was that I was Catholic. Oh, I can't think that. I'll go to hell. Oh my God. Well, but this is what my experience is. And so I'm over here experimenting with this and thinking, why did that happen? Why can't I sleep? Because after a full-blown kundalini, consciousness is awake. And it has no need to sleep. And only the body needs to sleep. So you put yourself to bed and you do not fall asleep. And you drag yourself out of bed the next morning at 6 o'clock or 4 o'clock in my case. And you drag yourself to work and, you're, oh my God, I haven't slept. But you're functioning very well. Mm-hmm. It's only inside of yourself that all of this story and affirmations for the worst possible outcomes are happening. I'm going nuts. I'm tired. I can't deal with that. That's not the way I was taught. Why did that happen? Of course, as soon as you ask, why did that happen? A flood of answers and information comes in from every different angle. And now you're more and more overwhelmed every minute. And then there comes a phase where you begin to see what is. And you don't like it, perhaps, but you see what is. And so you see yourself. You see your husband. You see your parents. You see your siblings. You see the world. And typically, what you see is the truth. And you don't like it, and you start to cry. The crying lasts anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years to maybe 3, even sometimes 5 years. Mm-hmm. And most of the crying is grieving for what used to be, for the old perceptual you. Mm-hmm. And for the fact that that person is no longer available. She's dead. She might as well be dead, or he. And so there's this crying as you see, wow, it doesn't have to be this way. But nobody else except you has permission to make it be different. And when you're the only one, you're left in your own world all by yourself to deal with yourself. Mm-hmm. So then you struggle with that. And then family is usually, you can't make yourself go to work at a job that you hate. You can't make yourself eat something you don't think is good for you. You can't make yourself, love somebody or pretend you love somebody when you all of a sudden see who they really are and you don't have any interest or respect or passion for that person anymore. You can't be there for your children at that moment, perhaps because you have to be there for yourself. And you have such limited resources because most of us grow up with a very small range of things that we have permission to do or to be. And so there's this whole period that is full of struggle and tears and disappointment. Marriages end, jobs end. Who am I? What am I? Where are the people who think like me? Mm-hmm. And then finally you meet one, and then maybe another, and you move through people. You begin to meet people who are kind of waking up, but they're back 2 years, 3 years, 8 years behind you, and it's really, they're not satisfactory. You're looking for something that will answer the questions you have, and most of the questions are going to be about the nature of reality. Mm-hmm. What is the true nature of reality? Who is God? How did we get here? Why am I able to see these kinds of things beforehand, before they really happen? Why am I not sleeping? And so on and so forth. And so it's a period, usually lasts from 7 to 10 years of intense restructuring of your entire psyche and your physical body. You run into, your physical self. And then it starts to come together. You begin to understand. You've done some reading. Maybe you went to a conference, etc. And you pick up these little tidbits here and there. And that really begins to anchor you. And the long-term goal, is to become an eternal being. What is an eternal being? It is someone who is sustainable, regardless of what's going on.
I love that word. I love sustainable word. That's the best word for that.
It is. If you can't sustain yourself, you're dead.
Yes, it's awesome. I love it. Continue.
Yeah, so you become sustainable and you get used to being alone inside yourself. Mm-hmm. Some of the problems that people, I do a lot of consultations, and almost everybody says at the very end of their appointment, well, do you see a lover? Do you see a husband? Do you say, am I going to be alone for the rest of my life? here's the problem with an awakened person. You can no longer be swept away by anybody or anything. You're too aware.
It's so true. It's so true. That is true.
Yeah. You see and hear all these little things that you would have just hopped right over, 10 years ago. And, that doesn't matter. I can change that. I can live with that. And you can't. Mm-mm. And furthermore, you're not really, when you get to a fully developed stage, you have to be about your own work and your own passion, whatever that is.
And not in a sociopathic way.
No, it's a way of service.
Yes.
Yeah, because what happens in this long process, 7 to 10 year process, and for some, like for me, it's overnight, but it's still really problematic. And the problem is that what wakes up is consciousness. Now, remember when I said that mind space is the core, it's the stuff that we're made of? Mm-hmm. And it's space. When space starts to move, it becomes energy, and when energy produces particles, that's us. Mm-hmm. So what you have in this process, now I forgot what I was going to say. Hang on a second, it'll come back.
I'll pull out.
I have another thought that I want to share. In the process of doing all this, you end up really discovering what it is you came here to do. Mm-hmm. And you have to pursue that. You can't waste your time on other things. And yet you still have to pay the bills. You still have to, like I said, wash your socks and do the dishes. Mm-hmm. You still have to attend, the birthday parties and the family reunions, perhaps. And those they may or may not have any meaning anymore. And so one of the things that occurs in a full-blown, that's what I was going to say, in a full-blown kundalini thing, is that this bliss that is your core self, that that is the characteristic of mind space, that bliss becomes this overflowing fountain of love.
Yeah.
And you cannot shut that off.
No. It's all about the love. Everything's about the love.
It is. You have to let that love flow, and it's going to flow out in every direction, and it's typically going to settle on one of the kingdoms, plants or animals or people or ETs from other dimensions. And you're going to have to develop a whole set of skills around whatever your passion is, and that's your gift. And you just do that. And then if you're wise, you will keep paying the bills with your regular job, even though it may be difficult to do that. But you'll be figuring out, how do I take this passion and make it work? How do I structure my life to live on what I can make doing this thing?
That's a tough one when you get to that point, because it's like it hasn't been done before. Right? Hasn't been done before in this way. It's new territory, right? Like a pioneer in this.
That's true. However, if we were taught differently, if we were brought up differently to find our passion and build our life around that and connect with a partner who likes what you're doing and wants to fit into that, then that would be ideal. Mm-hmm. What we have now, then here's where you get into a lot of difficulties, a lot of people struggling right now with what's going on in the world, because the way we have the world set up is just not working. It's working, but it's not working very well. If you want to use criteria like it's all about the money, then yeah, it's working. If you want to say it's about peace, we have peace. Yeah, kind of. We're mostly peaceful. If it's about health, no, we're failing miserably.
Terrible.
If it's about happiness and contentment, no, we're failing miserably. Mm-hmm. So if it's about restoring, regenerating the world on a continuous basis, no, we're destroying at a terrific rate.
True.
So you come up against the world, And that, that's a whole bunch of grief right there. All by
it's your responsibility in that.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a responsibility. You have a responsibility to order your world and organize your world in such a way that you heal, you keep yourself out of trouble, and you keep yourself from compromising yourself. So, to the best of our ability, that's everybody's working 2 jobs. Everybody. And some are working 3. Yeah, the things that pay the bills, and then the things that really develop the consciousness and the soul. So, and we're coming up on some really serious issues here in terms of, just in terms of the world. I have written about some of those challenges in my latest book, and it's really caused an interesting range of comments. That's for sure.
Good. You're supposed to shake things up and wake people up. And
oh my, yeah. Well, you know what? I have to tell the truth about what I see.
It's all about truth and freedom, right? Truth and freedom. Truth and freedom and love. Truth, freedom, love.
Right. That is so, so important. So, here we are with this mess in front of us. And we think we have a mess with the government and the financial system and the borders and relationships with other countries. That isn't even the half of it. Mm-hmm. So
Let's go into that with your book. What's the title of your new book that you just, your very newest one?
That's volume 4. Mm-hmm. It's Consciousness and Energy, volume 4. But the subtitle, you have to kind of go by the subtitle. It's Trump, the Sting, the Catastrophe Cycle, and Consciousness.
Wow.
And in a nutshell, it basically just lays out. I started with this issue of Trump, what's really happening, because people don't know what's really happening behind the scenes.
Can we talk a little bit about that? Can we just maybe break it down just a tad on each subject here?
Well, we'll be here till next Thursday.
We have like 10 minutes before break. So
okay, all right. So there's a lot of. So let me just kind of nutshell it. I guess would be the best way to talk about it, because Trump gets elected. He was invited to be president. He made a deal with the military. The deal began in somewhere around 2012, and it was a deal that basically, I'm going to say it like this: the military was going to do a full-blown military coup d'etat and overtake the government of the United States. Mm-hmm. Because of what they saw happening and because of the level of corruption that was going on. And they realized at some point that wasn't going to work, because the full-blown coup d'etat has to have media. And all the media was owned by the corrupt factions. Mm-hmm. And they had to have people's hearts or they wouldn't succeed. And so they started looking around for somebody who could be president, and they settled on Donald Trump. And Trump and the military made a deal. Now, the military is very, very, very Christian, and Trump is compatible with that. He isn't very Christian, but he's compatible, and he doesn't have any argument with it. And so they made this deal. Trump is out in front. He's going to change the financial and many of the corrupt laws, and the military is going to go in the background and take out the corruption. And so they started, I think, in 2012, and very very quietly. And so the revolution that was supposed to happen on the 4th of July in 2012 did not happen. And I was like, what happened? What happened to the revolution? And I knew that the corruption was awful. It was mind-blowing. And I could see that they were taking down the U.S., and I didn't like it. but I knew, I couldn't do anything. It had to be people with real power. And I don't want to shoot anybody, and I don't want to be involved in that, but I didn't mind if somebody else wanted to use those guns, and use them for a good purpose. So that sounds terrible, but that's the truth. So Trump and the military made this deal. Trump's out in front. He was kind of like, have you ever been to a rodeo where they do bull riding? Mm-hmm. And the guy falls off the bull and the clowns have to come out and distract the bull? Right. That's how I saw Trump. He's the clown distracting from what's going on in the background in terms of the corruption. So he gets elected, nutshell. He puts a lot of people in who are known for their involvement in the corruption. And the reason he did that was because he was able to watch them do their evil and corrupt things firsthand. And so he and the NSA and the military intelligence were busy collecting a lot of information, a lot of data, and Trump continued to act like he was kind of inept. A lot of turnover, a lot of incendiary language, a lot of distraction. He was playing the clown. And then in October of 2017, the sting actually began. And it's global. It's continuing. It's been about a year and a half now. It started in Saudi Arabia. And so the goal was to really cut what I'll call the corruption rings, the sex trafficking, the child sex trafficking, the child sacrifice stuff, just a lot of ugly, awful things. And Saudi Arabia kept 3,000 children on hand at all times because they paid people in children. And it was not good. It just wasn't good. And I didn't really want that to come out because I thought people would blow up. Mm-hmm. And it has come out and people haven't blown up. And I'm like, what? Wow. Okay. So Trump is doing this distraction thing. The military is working in the background, and here's the big risk. There's so much going on behind the scenes. For instance, the Las Vegas massacre. Nobody knows that, or very few know that Prince Al-Walid, who was a Saudi Arabian prince, and Bill Gates owned the top 5 floors of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. Trump went there to have a secret meeting, and they were planning to assassinate him, but he found out about the plot. I mean, they had MS-13 security guards, they had, all their people lined up, and something went wrong. I don't know exactly what went wrong, but they ended up, I don't think Trump ever got off the plane at McCarran Airport. Mm-hmm. And they tried to shoot the plane, which was right there on the other side of the concert. And they ended up, killing a whole bunch of people at the concert. And, it was a mess. And what I see now is that there's a war going on between these two factions of billionaires. Trump and his team are one set of billionaires, and they're very Christian-oriented. The other set is the cabal, and they are fighting for their lives. And they're using their corporations, and it's messy. And in the book, I have a lot of detail. Just a lot of detail about things going on behind the scenes, like the Las Vegas massacre, what really happened there, and other things, lots of other things. And so I'm stewing and chewing about all this, and we get into December of 2018, and my first husband is diagnosed with cancer, I think on December 5th. And so for me, it was, that's the father of all my children. And so it was a really awful time for us, and he died on Christmas Eve.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, it was a lot of tears. We really didn't celebrate Christmas at all, etc. So, December, I'm realizing there's a massive sting going on in terms of our government. And then there's this massive family event, the death of my kid's father, my first husband. And so then I think, well, I need a break. I need to get away and do something different. And I came across, I thought I'll get on the treadmill and I'll look at some of my favorite science and math channels. And I found something on ice ages. And that is what introduced me to the solar thing.
Yeah, so maybe when we come back from break, you could talk about that a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I will. People will be upset, but I will talk about it.
Oh, no. Well, hey, truth is the truth all day long, and what you discover, it's not easy and it's not comfortable and it's like birth, right? Not easy, not comfortable, but it's really worth it.
Right.
In the long run. So
it is. Wow.
So thank you for that. And where can everyone connect with you to get a reading or a consultation and your school that you have? We have 5 minutes to talk about that if you'd like.
Okay.
Take a break and then we'll start the second half.
Okay. All right. So I have a website. It's called consciousnessonfire.com, all one word. And my digital books, my ebooks, all my books are in digital form on that website, and then they're also on Amazon. The print books are on Amazon, and you just have to type in my name and Consciousness and Energy, volume, whatever. And I think all the books are there. And then I have a little online school called the Robes Education Center. And maybe it's not called that, but it's going to be called that. Okay. So I teach classes online. I was teaching here at the farm for a very, very long time. And then now it's a big B&B. And for large groups, we only rent to large groups, but I still teach online and have had a lot of fun with that. I can work with people, and I do with people all over the world. And I keep the group small because I like the interaction and I like the in-depth quality of a small group. So, all of my classes are on my website. You can check them out.
I love it. And so where are you located? Where is your farm? And it's organic farm?
It's in Southwest Michigan. I'm about 35 miles from Lake Michigan and about 22 miles above the Indiana border. If you know where Kalamazoo is, I'm in that general area.
Okay. And I also understand that you do once a month Tea and Spirit, or I forget the exact name of it. I love that.
Yeah. We have a conversation. Anybody can join. It's $35, and sometimes it's more intense than a consultation. But I call it Tea and Consciousness, and I tell people, get your tea or your coffee or your beer, whatever, and come and, let's talk and ask questions. And, and that really is, I tell people, put some thought into what you want to ask. And it's very, very informative for everybody who attends.
I love that. And when you get your answers, is it something that is just a download from knowingness, or do you use your spirit guides, or do you use a channeling effect or a medium effect, or how do you, when someone asks a question, how do you proceed to find that? Is that different and unique with each person? Maybe at your level?
Well, I have spent 40 years studying consciousness and researching consciousness and being researched. And I have this love of science myself. And so when I answer a question, most of the questions, almost all of them, are stuff that I already know. Once in a while, I get a question and I'll say, I don't know, but let me find out. And then that provides this excuse for me to go studying some more. and I figure stuff out, and I have quite a few pieces of the puzzle put together. There's still a number of holes yet, but you know, and in answer to your question about guides, almost all guides are parts of yourself that you've already lived or are going to live, or family members. There can be others, but by and large, most of the time you're drawing on your own wisdom that you've gotten from other lives. Once in a while, I will open my mouth and out falls something I had never thought about. And it just is clear and coherent. And I realize that I'm listening from, 3 feet away.
Right.
I'm in an altered state in the interview, and somebody asks something, or in the discussion in the Tea and Consciousness, and I answer it, and I'm like, oh wow, and I learn as much as the people who are listening at that moment.
And you get to expand your consciousness and expand like a big, beautiful lotus flower, right?
Yes. Yes. And I am convinced that people ask the questions that they have been guided to ask because it helps me put together another piece of the puzzle.
Right. Anything when you work with a group like that, right? Where you can grow exponentially rather quickly than when you're by yourself sometimes. So it's really beautiful.
Amen. Amen.
Well, thank you. We're going on break right now. We'll be back at 6:04 LA time. So you can go grab a coffee, do what you need to do, everyone. Hang in there. The promos will start, and we'll be back at 6:04 with Penny Kelly. We'll be talking about the evolving human. So stay right where you are, and we'll be right back. Thanks.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Wadiya will remain a dictatorship. Oh, be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
Ohio Exopolitics will be on from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A. Mark Schneider will have guests on that will discuss many important topics, including the state of the world today. However, much of the show will be dedicated to the writings of Edward Albert Meyer. Let me read a short passage from one of his writings. Love is the highest principle of creation, and through it, everything exists in absolute logic. All of nature in its indescribable splendor is nothing but the love of creation, which is expressed visibly. The love of creation is everywhere, because without it, nothing at all would be able to exist. Please join Mark on Ohio Exopolitics from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A.
It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne, and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back to the Cosmic Oracle Show. This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsey, and we have with us today Penny Kelly. And if you stay tuned for the first part, I think the second part is really going to rock. So she has some information for us that you won't be getting anywhere else, and I just love her innate love and truth and her love for humanity itself, and sharing with us her research and her life experiences for over 30 years now. So it isn't just, you don't get just the mind part, you get the heart part, that connection with all that it is, all that was, and all that will be, and the full enchilada, shall we say, coming from California. It's I love Mexican food, and I'm a little hungry, so that's what came out. So welcome back to the show, Penny.
Okay, good. All right. Well, while we were on break, I was thinking about coming at this whole topic of evolving ourselves kind of from the story at the back end of Volume 4, because it leads right into, we have to evolve consciousness. We have to. It's no longer really much of an option. It's kind of like a have to with a deadline. So, if you want to do that, or if you have questions, we can answer questions, however you want to do it. But that's my thinking.
Yeah, no, I like that, because we are on a deadline. We're pushing it. And is that having to do with, I read some of your work with the supernova. Is that something that, so do you want to take off from there? Or?
Yeah, and we hope it's not a supernova. We just a micronova. Yeah, so let me just kind of tell that story, how I came across that and what's involved in it. So I was looking for something that was, peaceful, interesting, not over dramatic and not stressing me out like what was happening in our country or what was happening in our family, because everybody was crying over the death of their dead. And so I got on the treadmill. I looked at something, I looking through my favorite science and math channels, and I come to this video, and it says, the true cause of the ice ages, or something like that. And I think, well, what does this guy have to say? Because I'm interested in that whole climate debate. Mm-hmm. And long story short, in terms of his lecture, I came right into the middle of a series of lectures by Doug Vogt. And basically, this is the story. Mm-hmm. He was a young accountant back in the early 70s, and he had a small publishing company on the side that he was publishing scientific journals with. And so people would send him their scientific papers, and he would have to read them, and in order to set them up in the journals. And he got interested in astronomy, and he decided to start building a database of stars. So he starts this database, and he's working on it, and he notices that there's no stars 12,000 light years away. And then he notices there's no stars 24,000 light years away. And then he sees there's none 36,000 light years away, and there's none 48,000 or 60,000 or 72,000 light years away. And he's like, whoa, this is a pattern. This is a regularity. What's going on? And he starts digging into that and comes to the realization that, yes, there are stars in these bands, 12,000, 24, 36, and so on, 1,000 light years away, but you can't see them because they're obscured by massive dust clouds. So then the question became, what's causing these dust clouds every 12,000 years? And what it came down to is that every 12,000 years, the sun does a nova. Now, at the time that he was figuring this out, it was believed that when the sun does a nova, it's a supernova, and the star is destroyed. And he said, no, that's not the case. It just does it like a sneeze. And poof, and what it does is blow off 12,000 years of dust and dirt and debris and meteors and other stuff that have settled on the surface. And so when the sun does this poof, what happens is that about 8 minutes later, a big compression wave hits the sun-facing side of the planet. And that compression wave, when you compress a gas, and our atmosphere is a gas, the temperature goes up. That's Boyle's law. When you expand a gas, the temperature goes down, and it goes up or down drastically depending on how fast the compression or the expansion occurs. And so what he realized was that this compression wave compresses the planet, or compresses the atmosphere on the sun-facing side of the planet, raising the temperature. to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit and frying everything on that side of the planet. So about 17 hours later, the dust cloud hits. Now, at that point, the planet has rotated, and we're to the other side of the planet, or to a different spot. And that dust cloud hits, and it's moving about 1,500 miles per second, and it just pulverizes everything. And when it hits, it blows away the atmosphere. And that blowing away causes the atmosphere on the backside of the planet to expand around to the side that got blown away. And when that occurs, there are tremendous winds, over 200 mile per hour winds, and the temperature drops to minus 200 degrees Fahrenheit or worse. And so he said, now, if this thing hits, wherever it hits, if it hits over water, it's going to boil the ocean. If the compression wave hits over water, it's going to boil the ocean, and it's going to evaporate about 1,200 feet of surface water from the surface of the ocean. And now that water is up in the atmosphere, and it's going to start coming down, and it will rain and rain and rain for weeks, flooding everything until it all runs back into the ocean. And he said if it's 12,000 or 1,200 feet of water that's coming down as snow, that's going to translate to 19,000 feet of snow. And we have the start of a new ice age. And he said it snows possibly all the way down to the southern parts of the U.S. and maybe even into Mexico. But a couple of other issues occur at the same time. When that first compression wave hits the planet may stop rotating for just a little bit, maybe an hour, maybe a couple hours. But the ocean doesn't stop. It keeps on going. And so it rolls right across the continents and wipes out a whole bunch of stuff, which if that area has been superheated and is burning, it puts out all the fire, which is good. Mm-hmm. It's not good for people, but it saves a lot of plants and animals and seeds and things like that. And also if that compression wave hits, the planet is rotating because of the magnetic field that's moving through it in a big torus. It kind of moves up through the planet, comes out the top at the North Pole, circles around, comes back in the bottom at the South Pole, moves through the planet again, comes out the top. And so it's this big donut kind of thing. So if the planet stops rotating and it gets, bumped, it'll bump the magnetic field, and the magnetic field will drop. And what we have are these big piles of ice at the top and bottom of the world. And, it's bigger around in the middle than it is, from north to south. And the planet may tip with the ice ending up at the equator and something else ending up at the North Pole. And it's just a big mess. And it's an extinction level event. And so by the time I got off the treadmill, I was in a state of shock, to say the least. And then I spent several months looking for contrary information, contradictions, etc. What he said was our 12,068 years is almost up. Mm. And it will be up completely in 2046. We're already showing signs that the sun is getting ready to blow. He said there's several signs. One is that the sun turns a whitish color and dims a little bit. The second thing is that
it's already looked kind of like that, don't you think? It seems more white than I remember growing up.
Yeah, the scientists are all talking. They had been talking about why is the sun changing color? What's happening? Right. And another thing is that it begins to swell so that an eclipse by the moon no longer blocks out the whole sun, and it begins to look like a white sidewall tire. He said, when that happens, it's time to go to your underground bunker and pray. So we have, the sun is changing color. It has swollen a little bit. It has dimmed a lot. So we're facing this event. The North and South poles have moved dramatically, and they have split, which is not unusual. I mean, we do get a split in the polar regions. Right now, I think we have 2 North poles and we have 2 South poles. And what happens is if those poles move too close together, and too close together would mean that the North Pole comes below the 40th parallel, and the South Pole comes above the 40th parallel in the southern hemisphere, then what happens is they often snap together, and, and then there's havoc. So
would that be the wobble, like a wobble that they're talking about, or is that a whole different?
A what? Say that again.
A wobble? Where it wobbles?
No, the wobble is actually something that occurs from just the orientation of the axis and the fact that it wobbles as it, moves, rotates. But this is a whole different animal. When you get those 2 poles that snap together, what you get sometimes is a pole reversal, and the planet will start spinning in the other direction.
Right.
So, that's an issue right there. Sometimes land masses are raised up quite a bit above sea level. Sometimes they sink below sea level. That's an issue. And we have 7 billion or more people on the planet at this point, and there's huge destruction of food and agriculture and supplies and electricity, and nobody knows how to live within Mother Nature anymore. And so, a few people survive because we're still here. We're still here, and so it's really. So here I am facing this massive thing and thinking, oh my God, oh no. And I'm trying to argue, no, this is impossible. And then I start remembering things. The first real memory, the first thing that the Little Men in Brown Robes showed me, and the Robes is another book that I wrote. And I wrote it probably 21 years ago, 22 or 3 years ago now. And the very first thing they showed me was to take me out away from the planet. And the earth was just, what a fishing bobber looks like when it's riding on the water and a fish bites on it and it bobs up and down and below the surface a little. That's what the planet looked like. It was bobbing and rolling around in space. And I was really struggling just to give these Little Men in Brown Robes the courtesy of looking at their pictures. They wanted to show me some pictures. And this was the first picture they showed me. And I couldn't quite get my mind around it. I wrote it up. It's in the book. And I was just stunned. Everything on every coast was gone. Everything. There was a huge amount of destruction. I won't even go into that because it's too ugly to even think about. You use your own imagination. In a few cases, land folded over on itself. It was awful. And I remember being in denial right from the beginning. They had said to me, something like, the earth is alive. The earth is a living being. And I focused on that thinking, what? And that she has to heal herself.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get my mind around that because, here I was, an engineer at Chrysler. That wasn't my line of thinking. I didn't know anything about metaphysics, had never heard of all the stuff that's new agey or metaphysical ever. And so that was the first thing, and I realized, oh my gosh, why, of all the things
For them to
that they showed me why that, and why was that the first thing. Mm-hmm. And they said to me at the time, you need to rethink the entire structure of your civilization. Are you sure the nuclear plant and the high dam are the best ways to generate power? Mm. And I did not make the connection. I didn't realize, I just couldn't think, why would a planet behave like that? Because I didn't know anything about the sun. Nobody did at that point. Right. This was 1980 and 81. So then I remembered that in the early days of Kundalini, these 3 beings of light came to get me 3 different times and took me to what I described as another planet that was an exact duplicate of planet Earth, except that it had no war, no sickness, no fighting, no arguing, no trash, no overweight people, no unhappy, depressed people, none of that. It was a beautiful place. Everybody was cooperating, and here was the thing. Everything from the grains of sand and the pebbles and stones and grass to the bricks in the building, to the trees and the flowers and the people were all in this amazing, loving communication.
Yeah, relationship.
Yeah. And they were listening to one another, and they were cooperating with one another. And I went there 3 times with them. I went once on my own, but I didn't know how I got there. I just recognized that I was there after I got there, and I was busy, focused on something else, so I didn't really think about it. But that at the point that I was realizing, okay, I had never been able to answer the question, why did those 3 beings take me to that place, to that other Earth? That just I couldn't get my mind around that. It was only much later that actually it was just back in the beginning of this year that I began putting all the pieces together, things that I had experienced or done that were like, what was that about? Why did that happen? Mm-hmm. And what I actually came to the conclusion, now let's go to the back end of volume 4. I was realizing that we really don't have a lot of options right now. If this whole thing is coming about, then we have to develop our consciousness and either move to another planet or move to another Earth or enter an altered state, or at the very least, develop consciousness so that, if this big wave comes and washes us all away, we are standing ready to step right into the next world with full consciousness, so that there's not this blank period of chaotic, confusion and lostness.
So would it be where we're able, if we follow our consciousness and work on that and make it real to ourselves, then as a group of our species, then we can lift up. It's lifting up the vibration to match that new Earth?
Yes. I think one of the big things is we have to reconnect with nature. Mm-hmm. We have to begin to develop a relationship with nature, because Mother Earth wants us to take everything she's offered with us and recreate it on that next Earth, new Earth.
Yeah, I had a similar experience when in my near-death experience when I was up on the spaceship, and they took me experientially and had a hologram, the Mother Earth, come right up to me. And I went into it and became one with the Mother Earth. Ooh. And in those teachings, that our heartbeat is the same as hers, that we have this, where there's no separation there. And it was really interesting. So when you're saying that, it's where we get out there so far, and woo-woo is a wonderful name. I love that name.
I know.
And then coming back and then developing deep down roots into our Mother Earth, and that the First Nations know so much about that. And I've had the luck to work with them. And so, it's having a relationship with our Mother Earth, and it's makes life very sweet.
That is so true. We are the creation of Mother Earth. We are made of earth minerals, and they are very intelligent, and we think that we are just here accidentally, or it's just a nice place to live. That's not the case. We literally are made of earth and sky. And so it's a point where I think we have to, like Dolores Cannon says, we have to move to a new earth. Now, here's the thing. In the back of Volume 4, I have a long chapter where I list, I think, 17 different kinds of exercises that you can do, and you can pick any one of them and start expanding your consciousness. When you expand your consciousness, literally, you have to practice doing something different with it, not just the same old, or you're never going to get out of the rut.
Right, and it's uncomfortable. But do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I try to make it comfortable. I think, let me read one of the. I try to make it fun. Everything is really much more fun than we make it so serious. It's just not necessary. So here's a couple things. This is number 2. Start looking at your environment and seeing who is around you, really seeing as if for the first time. Practice the discipline of observing instead of reacting. A good way to practice this is to pretend you are a ghost, quietly watching without interfering. This then leads to the development of the observer self and a feeling of detachment, yet you see everything going on around you. Number 3, practice suspending judgment one day and then switching to making instant, intuitive judgments the next day. Alternate back and forth, noticing when the suspension is useful and when the intuitive judgment is correct. The goal is an increase in fluidity and is related to number 2 above, developing your ability to detach yourself from the programmed responses to life. So number 4, start communicating with Mother Nature as well as the things you have brought into your life, such as your car, your dishes, a favorite tool, a piece of equipment, your flower garden, the tree in the yard, the clerk at the grocery store, or the pot of soup you are making. The idea is to develop gratitude and appreciation for all forms of life and begin establishing relationships based on the recognition of others' presence and their role in your reality. And that includes your lettuce and your carrots and whatever else you're, fiddling with. So those are just a few of the, the ways to start.
You can have a practical application of this, a breakdown.
Yeah. Very, very practical, and yet it's very powerful.
And we are powerful.
Oh my.
Could you talk about that? Let's go there for a minute, shall we?
Yeah. Okay. So, power is the ability to decide and do, but it's also the willingness to create knowingly and on purpose. So let me just share a little story, which I think I wrote about in Volume 1. I was doing some out-of-body work. And it was just an evening where I thought, well, let me see if I can still get out of the body. So I did. I'm out of the body. And I find myself in this realm where there must have been, I've used the number 10,000 versions of myself. In every form and fashion you can shake a stick at, and I'm looking at all these versions of myself. It's like being in a hall of mirrors. And I got lost in there, and I got scared in there, actually. But what I realized was that every thought I had ever had, even if it was just a momentary, imaginary daydream of doing this or having that experience or, going there or not doing whatever, that thought created a version of myself doing exactly that. And they just repeated the same behavior over and over. Their birth date was the date that I had the thought. Some of them had a huge amount of energy and thought and planning and effort into it. And one of them that I wrote about was the magazine writer. I had tried for a number of years to get into the magazine markets, and all the stuff that I was writing about kept getting rejected because it didn't fit the advertisers. And it was telling the truth. I would be writing about health. It would be something about consciousness, and people were like, consciousness, what's that about? So, or some other facet of life that was too close to the truth or didn't support the prevailing narrative. And so I never really got into the magazine markets, even though I wanted to, because there was much more money in that than there is in writing books. And what I discovered when I was out of the body this particular night and lost among these tens of thousands of versions of myself that went all the way back to myself as a little tiny toddler, was that consciousness is so powerful that it creates a version of the self every time we veer or go off and are not present to the moment at hand. And those consciousnesses, all those versions of myself, depending on how much time and effort and thought and whatever was put into them, some of them were pretty developed as alternate selves. And I tell some stories in the book, which I won't go into because it's kind of embarrassing. But the long story short is the power of consciousness is immediate. And every time you think about or daydream about yourself doing something over there, instead of paying attention to what you're doing right here, then you're sending off some of your energy. The result is that you have to do this tremendous amount of what's called retrieval. Some people used to call it soul retrieval.
Right.
Other people call it energy retrieval. Some people just say, some other name. But basically, you have to bring all that energy back into the center. And it's a big piece of work in order to do that.
Wow. And so you were able to do that? In meditation, you went and just found those pieces of yourself and brought it.
I started the process. When there's 10,000 pieces, it takes a while.
Right. Right. So something that you would do daily.
Yeah, it's a little thing. Once in a while, I'll try to rope in, everything related to the thought about blah blah blah, whatever it is, and there will be a felt change when it actually occurs. Another little story that's, I forget which book it's in. I think it's in volume 1 too. It is a story about me creating this spine. I wanted to have this perfectly healthy, perfectly shaped spine. And so I started this little mantra. My spine is long and perfectly shaped and perfectly healthy. And I did that kind of, for maybe a year or two. I forget now what it was. I'd have to go back and read the book again. But one day I'm meditating, which I rarely meditate. Rarely. My meditation is every breath, every day, every step, every day. But I sat down this one night thinking, I'm going to meditate. I haven't had a chance to meditate in years. And what appears? This gorgeous, absolutely stunning spine made of lights appears and hangs right in front of me. And I'm looking at this thing thinking, oh my gosh, look at that thing. It took like 3 or 4 visits that this spine came to me before I realized, oh, that's the spine that I've been creating. And then, then I made an effort to integrate with that spine and then started, well, let's do that with the body. My body is long and slender and perfectly shaped and perfectly healthy. Yeah. And I'm still working on that. I haven't had any body up here yet. So
I love that. I love that a lot. Yeah, I have asthma, and so working with the lungs and so I'm going to try that. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah. When we heal, when we want to heal, what we're literally doing is rebuilding a new body, and then somewhere in the night, usually we slide right into that and continue on like nothing ever happened, except that the problem is either much less or it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone gets cancer and they start new food, new exercise, new processes, new lifestyles, different job maybe, different husband maybe, even different house or whatever, they are literally building an entirely new self, and then they step into that and continue forward, healed, and never realize how powerful they were.
Yeah.
They are.
And they are. And so do you feel like how many new cells have you had this lifetime? So when, like hundreds at this point in a way.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny, isn't it?
I still get caught, drifting off, imagining this or that and thinking, oh, wait, come back here. So, it's a process. Learning to be present is right. That's only part of the process of developing consciousness. Once you're fully present, do you have the permission to change things? That's a big question. Most people wait for somebody to tell them what to do or give them permission.
Right.
You have to give yourself permission to make a difference in the world.
And we need that now.
That's right. We do. And if we're going to move to a new earth, I was just talking to somebody tonight. We were talking about this new earth thing. And I said, when you get into an altered state, you, how do I say it? Sometimes it is so similar to your everyday reality that if you have not trained yourself to look for and be present to the little tiny details, you might not even notice that you're in an alternate dimension or alternate state. And some examples of that are, and these are just a few examples from my own experience. I am standing in a kitchen. It's my kitchen. It's familiar. Everything is normal. I'm looking over toward the stove, and all the handles, all the dials on the stove develop these little faces and smile at me. And instantly I was like, whoa, what is that? I am not in the right reality zone. I'm in an altered state, because that doesn't happen in the physical realm. Another would be, I was in a house, and I was walking through the house, and I tripped and fell. And when I tripped, I would have normally expected to fall flat on my face. And instead, I caught myself with my hands and did a flip, and landed on my feet. And as soon as I landed, I thought, wait a minute, I cannot do that. I'm in a different reality. And sure enough, I was. And another good example of noticing subtle differences, or not so subtle. I went into a bathroom, and it was a familiar bathroom. I knew the bathroom. It was, everyday stuff, but the door was on the wrong side of the room. Mm-hmm. And it's that kind of thing that you notice. And at that moment, you have to get very quiet and say, okay, what can I do? What good can I do? I'm in an altered state. When you're in an altered state, you have the opportunity to move energy. And because this realm is that energy, whatever you do is going to show up in the physical. Mm-hmm. So we are very, very powerful. We just don't think we are, so we don't practice anything.
Right. So awareness is everything, and then where your thought goes, energy flows, right?
That's right. That is so true. Yeah.
Wow. I know with myself from coming back from the NDE that there's still always a part of me that I can go find myself. Am I really there, or am I really here? And it took me a long time to be able to figure out the dance between that and among that, kind of like an infinity symbol between the two places,
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being in an altered state one time, and I thought I was downstairs working with my husband, and he was doing something. He was bent over. And so I go up to him, and I slide my hands around his belly, and I give him a big hug. And he stands up, and it wasn't him. Oh, I was like,
so there in that moment, right? It was so real.
Yeah. It was so. It looked like him from the behind, but it wasn't him.
So this reality, the more energy we can have here, in this body, in this avatar, shall we say, if you want to call it that, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
The more energy we have in it, the more awareness that we have, then the more powerful it makes us, so we can really make the changes then to the word ascend. I'd like to hear what you think about that word, into this new earth paradigm then,
I don't think we ascend anywhere.
Hey, thank God. Okay.
Yeah. We don't ascend. We just shift to a different frequency. So when I was first struggling with kundalini, and I would often find myself in 2 or 3 places at once, it became clear that the past was still ongoing in its form. Excuse me. In whatever form it had been back when. Okay? Mm-hmm. Which then caused me to go do some research. And the bottom line in that research was that if you and I, died and we met on the other side, and you were coming from California and I was coming from Michigan, and we were friends, and we were, chit-chatting about the experiences we just had and talking about where do we want to go next. Mm-hmm. We could say, let's go to the Roaring 20s. Al Capone and his gang were just so exciting, so interesting. Let's go to the 20s. Or let's go to the, the Roman wars and joins, one of their campaigns and see what that was about, or whatever. Because the time, let me say it like this, time is just a set of frequencies. Mm-hmm. And when the frequencies change to a different set, a different matrix of frequencies, you get a different experience. Right. But the original set continues on and continues on and continues on, and you can go there. So just like friends would say, you ought to go to Paris, or you ought to go to Bali. Mm-hmm. We can meet in the afterlife and say, you ought to try New York in the 1930s, or you ought to, go somewhere else that sounds intriguing. And those are still options. Those are just frequency zones.
Mm-hmm. It makes total sense. So, and we don't have to have a TARDIS to do it like in...
No. No.
But I love that we are time travelers. We really are.
Yeah,
love
not
that.
Only time travelers, we are time creators.
Time creators. Oh, I like that better.
Yeah,
we really are. And I just feel like, for me personally, to be here now is of utmost importance, and to have as much energy as I can in this body now, and not so much in all the other things that are available.
So why do you feel like that? What is it that makes this time special?
Because it's exciting. Because I like being a pioneer and being in a place where new things are discovered that haven't been discovered here before.
Yeah.
That's what helps me.
It's really very interesting. It is exciting. And years ago, I was only going to have 2 children. I did not want to pollute the earth with more human bodies. And that didn't work out. I got pregnant for number 3, and then before I even knew it, I was pregnant for number 4. So I had, one long stretch that was, baby. And I remember apologizing after Kundalini that I had contributed these 4 babies to the earth, even though I loved them. I was like, I hope you guys understand that I didn't mean to overpopulate with my 4 babies. And the response was, no. People are coming here to this time because they know that Christ consciousness is going to be taught, and they are going to have an opportunity, and they want to be here for that.
I agree.
And I never forgot that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have 3 children myself, and they all turned out great.
Yeah, mine too. They're wonderful people.
They are wonderful. We did a good job,
Yes.
And let them go, and taught them a lot of freedom, and they are unusual, and we're just wonderful. So
I know. I apologize to my children ever so often. It's like, thank you guys for signing on. I know this has been quite the ride, but appreciate it.
They go with you through the whole thing, and they didn't really have a choice.
That's right.
And then later, as adults, I've had each one of my children thank me, but oh my God, going through the eye of the needle was just intense,
Yeah, I do. Oh my. Yeah, when you have 4 kids in 6 years, it's really intense. Like, oh my gosh, they're all, right now, they're all going through their midlife crisis at one time.
Sure.
Settle down, guys. Settle down. It's okay.
I figure Spirit gave me 3 children. I was a single mom with 3 children.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was with 4.
With 4. And so it was like, we're not going to give her too much because she can't go crazy because she only has time from 5 to 5:15.
That's right. Oh my God. That's true. Yeah.
So we only have just a few, we have 9 minutes left in our show. It's been wonderful having you here. And is there anything that you would like to say to our listeners that you feel is important, that it's, that you would like for them to hear today and express?
Yeah, I think a couple things maybe.
Okay.
When you start developing consciousness, the first thing that you run into is your body, because that's where the consciousness is centered. It's in that body, and so you end up becoming aware that I should do that. I should. All of a sudden you want to lose a little weight, or you want to gain some weight if you're too skinny, or you want to do some detox, or your knee hurts and you don't want knee replacement surgery, so you want to fix that knee, or you got fibromyalgia, or this or that, or whatever. And that is the first task of becoming a fully sustainable soul. Is to heal yourself. And it's a big task, because what you learn in the process of healing yourself is all the stuff that you should have been taught about having a body right from the get-go, that nobody bothered to teach. And, that is really important. Don't give up if you run right smack into your body, or if the body is the thing waking you up. You get some disease, or you have some terrible accident, or like you, then go with it. Go with it and know that this was your gift. So, the second thing I would say is we are at a place in time where I think either we're going to shift into an alternate Earth, and we want to do that very smoothly, so smoothly that we hardly even know we did it. We just, the bottom line would be the result that we end up thinking, wow, all the problems got resolved. Everything's cool, that would be the ideal. And in order to begin really getting a handle on consciousness, in addition to the the 17 practices that I have in the back of Volume 4, I would highly, highly recommend that you get a little notebook and a little spiral thing. It can be 4x5, it can be 5x7, it can be, 6x9 or 8.5x11, doesn't matter. And put all of your thoughts, your perceptions, unusual perceptions in there, date and time them, and start telling yourself every night before you go to bed, I will remember my dreams. And when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're remembering a dream, write it down, the date and whatever time it is. If it's 2:30 in the morning or 4:41, write that time down and write down as many details about that dream as you can. And at first you will say, well, I don't want to disturb my sleep. I won't go back to sleep. But that's not true. If you train yourself to wake up, write the dream down, and go right back to sleep, pretty soon you will be able to sleep anywhere on a moment's notice without any difficulty. And dreams, the alternate consciousness that occurs while your body is asleep, is very, very important. That's 1/3 of your life. And understanding dreams begins to teach you the language of energy. And that is critical. When you learn the language of energy, you can begin to alter what happens in the physical realm, because you know how to use the language to make a difference. And dreams are the perfect way to get to that understanding. So, remember your dreams, write them down. I think, maybe one other little thing I would say is you have to exercise. Why? Not because of cardio and all that, muscle loss and bone strength, all that. It's because exercise, even just stretching, yoga, generates electricity. You are an electrical being. Consciousness is an electrical event. So what you want is to generate enough electricity to have a little bit extra to expand your consciousness. I can't emphasize how important that is.
I love that. And isn't it true too that once you are aware and you have that consciousness, you look more vital. You look, you have more energy, right? Where you can, kind of glow from within in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really true. You want electricity. So let's say that you're eating all these important things that you think you need, and you're taking supplements and minerals and aminos and, vitamins, but you don't have any electricity. All that stuff is going in and going right out the back door, and that's why they say, supplements, why do you bother with those? They don't do anything. They do. If you have electricity driving the chemical transactions, you have to exercise if you want to expand your consciousn's. It's kind of non-negotiable.
It's the driver of it.
Right. And when I say exercise, I mean like 10 minutes. That's all.
No pain, no gain? Not the no pain, no gain?
No, that does not apply.
Oh, thank God.
That does not apply.
Not for speed, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, go for a walk, lift a few weights, bend over and stretch, lean backwards and hang on to your rear end and lean back as far as you can, open up your chest. Those small, simple moves generate electricity. Your muscles are your battery packs. If you don't get some electricity running through those, then you're going to have very, very low and slow chemical transactions in the body. And you're just going to age and fall apart. Mm-hmm. And there's no reason for that. A lot of people, that I meet are in such bad shape. I'm so sorry. I feel so sorry for them. And they don't have a clue what to do or where to begin. So, the body, you have the body is your temple. You have to take care of your temple.
I love it. Well, I love that. And that, so wherever you go, there you are, right? So it's kind of like, got to take that body with you as much as you can expand conscious-wise. You can have all of that, but if you don't incorporate it into the body,
right,
then you're missing out the joy of having a body. Right?
Yeah.
Have one.
Lots of people, the body is no good. It's this.
I love having a body.
Oh, that's what it's all about. In fact, it's really important to understand that once you get to the other side, you really cannot have some of the major progress that you have in a physical body. Because everything
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free. But there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country is founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Oh, Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war.